Well, goddamn. We're only 18 days away from the NBA starting off again. Feels like we just ended the season. I mean, that was just less than 2 months ago where the Lakers won their 17th ring. I don't know if you folks forgot about that shit, but here we are heading into the 2020-21 season of the woke league of Chinese basketball. And this Lakers fan has to gloat a little bit, so I'm here to bring you episode 306 of the Sky Lounge podcast, the Brash Hubris of a Lakers fan and his surprising appreciation for context. And really, what I want to do in this episode is just talk about the Lakers offseason with bullet points. I mean, mostly with players and what's been happening in terms of, free agency, trades, and what we have in terms of a roster so far, and not really a in-depth stats kind of thing, if that's what you're looking for, which I mean, I'm not an analytics maester. I'm just not. I just casually look at numbers from time to time. And I got to tell you, heading into this 2020-21 season, I like what's going on with the Lakers so far in this offseason, yet there is a dimension of concern where I look at a GM like Rob Pelinka, who I think he's doing some tremendous work as a defending champion, but you begin to wonder what some of the trades and essentially non-signings, the coldness of the Lakers are showing out a little too early. And could that be a turnoff, eventually down the line for the Lakers? To that, I would say yes and no. I mean, it obviously depends on the players. I mean, there's a whole old saying by Kobe Bryant where, listen, if you can't handle the pressure, you don't belong in Los Angeles. And that's just the way Lakers ball is played. And we're not the fucking Clippers, kids. We don't just pound our goddamn chest when we win division titles. We pound our chest when we win championships. And so you got to be able to have a thick skin in the city of LA playing for the Lakers. And if in that case where you see a guy like Rob Pelinka making these calculated moves, these kind of callous, cold-hearted, almost NBA 2K GM machine kind of shit, you got to take it with a grain of salt because some players love that shit. Some players want to get in on that action of, wow, I want to get into this kind of cutthroat action. I'm a merc, so might as well go in, get paid, and do my job of just playing my role. And certain players thrive in that. Certain players absolutely thrive in that. I mean, I got players like Markieff Morris, I think perfect example, who, by the way, the Lakers did re-sign up, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. But it's things like that with the Lakers right now where I am optimistic about the roster. But generally speaking, because of the way the competition has kind of fleshed out for in terms of everyone else's roster, I would still say right now, we'll set a prediction video for another day, but I would say initially still right now, I have the Western Conference Final as the Dallas Mavericks taking on the Denver Nuggets, and the Eastern Conference Final as the Toronto Raptors taking on the Miami Heat. Now, I know I just overlooked a whole bunch of teams, and I'm going to take some quick fire takes with all the teams that's not the Lakers at the end of the episode here, towards the end of the episode here, because, yeah, a lot of shit's been happening. A lot of shit's been happening in the NBA, aka the woke league of Chinese basketball. And if you hate me saying that shit, go to the NBA, all right, and tell me all this fucking woke shit is genuine, okay? And then just shove it up your ass. I don't really care. I don't really care what you think if I had call the goddamn NBA the woke league of Chinese basketball, because it is. Let's not deny that shit anymore. They're Chinese slaves, right? But these Chinese slaves are going to bring some goddamn entertaining basketball. So, hell, still going to watch it. Probably going to put the whole goddamn games on mute. Except when James Worthy is talking about the game, because, oh, bless that old man. I love me some James Worthy. I mean, his game as a player, during the Showtime era was great enough, but his just not brilliant analysis. He's no fucking, I don't know, scientist when it comes to the game of basketball, but he is entertaining as all hell. And so I'll probably stay tuned into that. But generally speaking, I'm watching basketball for the basketball. I'm not watching it for the players talking their bullshit. I just want to see the fucking game. And for the Lakers, I mean, we're going to have a obviously different looking roster. And we've had to say some goodbyes. Despite the fact that we just won a ring. I know, some cold-hearted shit by Rob Pelinka, but it is what it is. Kind of deal. Right? Where, as a fan, yeah, you can emote, you can bitch and moan, and, take other fans' criticism, which, with a lot of these players that departed, I totally agree with their assessment. But it is what it is right now with the Lakers, where, okay, we just got to move on. And certainly, seeing a guy like Avery Bradley head to the Miami Heat, for me, it doesn't really mean anything emotionally. For me, it just says, cool, man, we've had a great run with Avery. He probably gets a ring because his contribution throughout the regular season, guys, regular season counts. Yes, the fuck it does. Okay? And Avery Bradley was a pivotal piece throughout the regular season, despite some regular season injuries. As the light fucking dims on me there. But what's not going to be dim is this Miami Heat team moving forward, because you got a fantastic defensive piece in Avery Bradley who can still give you a good 10, 15 point game per night. And I mean, when healthy, he's going to give it his all on the defensive end. And what more could you ask for in a young team that's just coming off of a finals loss that honestly was so epic? And yeah, I know a lot of people might be overrating Jimmy Butler or underrating him or whatever have you, but the Miami Heat, their future is looking bright, and they just added a fantastic piece in my mind for their continuing development into consistent playoff and championship contention. And so best of luck to Avery. I have no real ill will against the guy. I mean, obviously the whole, the whole, oh, let's not play the season, and the whole weird narrative behind that, I wasn't too crazy about it. But at the same time, listen, you have your priorities. You have your reason not to play in the bubble. I totally get it. And I wish you the best in Miami. It's like a fun squad moving forward. And again, Avery's going to be a fantastic piece over there in Miami, as will the two cats heading over to the Philadelphia 76ers, which I'm not going to lie to you. I don't like the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to be brutally honest about this. I grew up watching basketball in the early 2000s, meaning from when I lived in Los Angeles between the years of 1998 to 2000. What was it, 2004? Yeah, 2004. I watched Lakers basketball. And you fall in love with Lakers basketball because Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, duh. But I hated the 76ers because of that 2001 run. I didn't hate Allen Iverson because in my mind, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Vince Carter were the greatest fucking players I've ever seen in my life. Growing up, that was just me. And watching AI carve up the Lakers the way he did in that NBA Final Series, I mean, I don't hate the man. I love him that much more. But I hate the 76ers just for being a dog shit organization I mean, you fucked over AI, essentially, his career. And you honestly haven't been a dominant fucking force since Dr. J. And you ride off of what, arrogance every fucking season, because why? The process is a fucking thing. Fuck you and the fucking process. Sam Hinkie's an idiot. And the fact that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is barely working out should be an embarrassment of the entire process. It really should be. But now you're injecting new life into this organization of the Philadelphia 76ers with Daryl Morey, with Doc Rivers, who, oh my God, I think it's a mistake. But the Philadelphia 76ers need to do whatever the fuck they can to salvage this Embiid Simmons tandem. So, what else do you do? Well, you bring in guys like Danny Green and Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard leaves in free agency, which bummed me the fuck out. And honestly, when it comes down to it, it was to save salary cap space for Montrezl Harrell, which I kind of get it. You're going young. You're trying to go more quick, small ball. I get it, but man, Dwight was a different animal last season, and he played with his heart out every fucking game, whatever minutes you required him to play. And in the playoffs, certainly he didn't play every playoff game, but when he was asked to be a big role, good Lord, he was massive. I recall in that Denver series, he kind of fucked with the goddamn Denver Nuggets heads a little bit there. And so I'm bummed out that Dwight's over there in Philadelphia. But simultaneously, I'm so happy for Dwight. He's getting fucking contracts. He's getting money. And honestly, he is going to be a huge help over there in Philadelphia with what he was able to do with the Lakers last season. This is still a fucking dominant, over 7-foot athletic freak who will not only protect the rim, but he shoots the three better than Ben Simmons. Look that shit up. I can't make it up, man. Statistically speaking, in the 2020 season, and potentially overall, Dwight Howard is a better three-point shooter than Ben Simmons. And 2020, the crazier thing is, they have the same amount of shots attempt from the three, around 7 for Simmons and 5 for Dwight, if I'm not mistaken. And Ben Simmons made 2. Dwight made 3. Obviously, playoffs, Ben Simmons was injured, but Dwight, 1 for 2. He shot that 3 in the final seconds of the NBA Finals in Game 6, and I will never forget that moment because that's when you knew, like, oh my God, Dwight's NBA fucking champion in Orlando. And couldn't be happier for him. Obviously, bummed out it's Philadelphia, but hey, he takes leftovers with Danny Green, who goes off in a trade. Obviously, now we get Dennis Schroeder from OKC, and that whole trade flipped around to Danny Green heading on over into Philadelphia. And yeah, obviously OKC just accumulating all the picks. But I think Danny Green is going to serve a better role over there in Philadelphia. Obviously, if you do have fans over there in the NBA, you know, for the regular season, oh my God, Philly fans are brutal. So good luck, Danny. That is going to be a hoot and a holler if you see the man just get brutalized over there. But yeah, Dwight, who I've had a complete 180 throughout the season. I'm bummed out he's gone, but with Danny Green, yeah, another 180 for me. Where at the beginning of the season, I'm like, oh, cool, NBA champion. He had a brain fart over there in the Toronto series. I think Game 5 or really Game 6 too, where he turned over the goddamn ball in the dying fucking seconds of the game. Yeah, 180 guys in terms of opinions for both of them. Where conversely, I mean, with Danny Green, kind of left a sour taste in my mouth after the NBA Finals. Like, all right, man, like you're great. The death threats from shitty Lakers fans sucks, but bye. We get Dennis Schroeder for you. Oh, okay, bye. But another cat that I'm not bummed out, but I was a little curious of when the Lakers move off to him was JaVale McGee, who is now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I don't really know what the fucking Cavaliers are doing, honestly. And JaVale McGee, listen, he's a 3-time NBA champion at this point. What the fuck does he have to do now? Well, he has a vlog over there on YouTube, so he's probably going to be into that shit. Make a whole thing in Cleveland. And as far as I know, I mean, LeBron's still, webbed down there in Ohio, Cleveland and all that. So JaVale's probably going to have hookups and all that shit. So, hey, best of luck to whatever JaVale wants to do. I mean, he's a 3-time champion. He could do whatever the fuck he wants at this point. So, yeah, I think JaVale will probably be a trading chip for the Cleveland Cavaliers if they want to clear up, salary cap space down the future during the trade deadline or whatever have you, or before the All-Star break. But it's going to be really interesting to see, especially with some of these guys, if they do stay on the squad after the trade deadline. Obviously, pieces like Avery Bradley, I think Dwight Howard stays, but guys like Danny Green, JaVale, I question. But when you look at a man like Rajon Rondo, now 2-time NBA champion, heading over to the Atlanta Hawks, you think, wow, a team that throughout the offseason and the NBA draft retooled themselves in the Atlanta Hawks and kind of nutted up finally and said, wow, hey, look, Trae Young, good enough. Like, just good. And like, in my mind, I think he's good enough. He's not an all-star in my mind. He's a good enough, consistent player who is probably, in my mind, a second or third best option on a team on any given night. And I know he shoots really well from the three, but in my mind, that's how I view him. And yeah, that could be my bias. And maybe throughout the regular season, he's going to prove me wrong. And I hope he does for the young man's sake. He gets his own money and all that shit. But yeah, the Atlanta Hawks, they are getting a fantastic piece in Rajon Rondo, who is going to frustrate you out of hell throughout the regular season. I'll tell you that much. But he's going back to the East, and in the playoffs, if the Atlanta Hawks can make it to the playoffs, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. We've seen playoff Rondo throughout the years. And the whole thing with Rondo in this condensed 72-game season is that you have to just keep him healthy. You have to just make sure these young guys that you've kept drafting in this squad, because you've been consistently terrible, Hawks, that you develop these guys, and Rondo is a perfect fucking fit for developing young guys, especially these young athletic guys who are probably used to their kind of entitled treatment in college. I mean, let's face it, a lot of these one-year cats are. And I think Rondo is going to bring a very tightened veteran presence. And hey, it definitely helps that he just won an NBA championship, his second ring, where he can say, I was a factor in both rings. You can call the fucking H out, whatever, but Rondo is still a prolific, pivotal piece in any team, especially a playoff team. And so I think he's going to do wonders over there in the Hawks. And throughout the regular season, frustrating, yes, but he's going to have moments. He's going to have great moments. He always did with the Lakers too. I mean, lots of games where, you pull your hair because of Rondo, but at the same time, you're like, oh, cool, Rondo. Getting shit done. But was also getting shit done is Rob Pelinka. Cutting some of these cats or not re-signing them, and understandable. Dion Waiters, kind of a one-way dude, and still a free agent, and I'm sure a team can pick him up on a relatively, cheap deal, probably veteran minimum. If he doesn't get picked up, a week or so before the NBA start date, I would imagine probably some team like, I don't know, like maybe Charlotte, I guess. Might be fucking hilarious if Miami picked them up back again after the edible situation. Or hell, maybe a Phoenix. They've been going balls deep. So I'm curious to see where guys like Dion Waiters go. I don't think J.R. Smith is really going to go anywhere. Like, who in their right fucking mind is actually going to sign up J.R. Smith for any sort of money at this point? Unless you're the Lakers. and you feel like you need a bench cheerleader who just drinks Hennessy on the side every fucking night, yeah, sure. I could probably see that. But more than likely, I think the eventual, possible final slot veteran minimum sign up for the Lakers will be Quinn Cook. Still a free agent, but he seems like a piece that the Lakers can still capitalize off of if signed to a really cheap deal. Doesn't have to be an impact guy. And this is the thing that frustrates me about Lakers fans. And when we're talking about these, re-signs and new faces, that you can't take shit at just face value. Watch the fucking games and watch maybe the interactions through social media, which is toxic, I know, but generally look at the impact of certain players and what they do. And, shout out to my boy Jared Dudley, who we'll talk about later, but I'm specifically mentioning Jared Dudley here because people often overlook the emotional, intangible aspect of what a player can do. And certainly a guy like Quinn Cook, who we saw, during Kobe Bryant's whole tragedy situation. He goes to Staples Center. He's crying with the fans. He's part of the Lakers family. He loves the Lakers and he loves LA. So I could definitely see a near future where Quinn Cook signs up on the cheap. And, you have him as a bench guy, kind of like Troy Daniels was for a good chunk of the season, where you have maybe one or two fucking games where, oh my God, Troy Daniels scoring 15 plus points, efficiency rating ridiculous. But the Lakers are going to tighten up their shit with backup players. And obviously, the finesse that we've seen Rob Pelinka, operate on in this offseason, it's pretty spectacular to watch. I'm not going to lie, man. I was calling out Rob Pelinka right around the time when Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Josh Harden, a boatload of picks got traded for AD. Yeah, I lambasted against ownership, LeBron James, Rich Paul, Magic Johnson, every one of those motherfuckers. I went hard, but at this point now, looking back at it, all the failures, all the skid marks, all the bullshit leading to a championship, worth it, obviously. And, down the line, there are going to be collateral damage of winning a championship. There always is in any sports. I mean, let's not fucking pretend there's not, okay? So, with that said, I am just genuinely surprised how good of an offseason this has been for the Lakers. I mean, we're seeing some new, faces. I mean, we're seeing some new faces and saying hello. We're also saying welcome back to some old faces. But hey, we start off talking about Dennis Schroeder coming to the LA Lakers, a trade from the Oklahoma City Thunders for Danny Green and the 2020 NBA draft pick, which turned out to be the 28th pick. And honestly, what a move. I mean, you see Rajon Rondo leaving. You obviously don't really need Danny Green at this point. And you somehow elevate your roster with Dennis Schroeder, who, yeah, dude, he's not Damian Lillard. I mean, the thing is, when we make these trades and people look at just the position itself, and this is the problem and the most toxic thing about basketball fans, when you just look at the position itself and people fucking rip their hairs off like, how the fuck did you sign this guy when a guy like Damian Lillard and Westbrook is still out there? Do you understand how salary cap works? Do you understand how fucking trade exception all this shit works? It's very complicated. Even I don't know fully, but dude, don't fucking sit here and pretend that people are on the same fucking plane in terms of position and players are interchangeable like that. Like, shut the fuck up. You really think Danny Green and a 28th overall pick fetches you a Damian Lillard or Russell Westbrook? Well, I mean, technically we saw something along the lines with John Wall, but that's a whole different context to the trade situation with the Wizards and the Houston Rockets. But my whole point is this. There's levels to players. And players like Dennis Schroeder, I think, is a fantastic role player. This guy, obviously, we could talk about the six-man thing, but when you look at his resume, and I'm not the master stats guy. I've covered that earlier. But when you just look at the general overview of this man and his game, you look at a ball handling point guard who can get you points and facilitate play pretty well and is very explosive and can get shit done on defense. Like, oh my God, great. Great. You can run alongside LeBron and fucking AD like 20 fucking 30 fucking minutes a night. Awesome, man. Go for it. Let's do it. And honestly, for the trade value, it's fantastic. And I think, yeah, of course, you are going to have down games with these players. I mean, every fucking player, you're going to have down games. But the reality is, to retool in the way the Lakers did with, departures and trades, bang up job by Rob Pelinka to bring in Dennis Schroeder. Bringing in Montrezl Harrell on a 2-year, $19 million contract kind of not irked me, but surprised me a little bit. I thought the dollar amount was a little bit high. A little bit, but I'm not complaining too much. Yet simultaneously, couldn't we free up a little bit more cap space to bring Dwight? Because, once we run through this roster, of who's coming back and whatever have you, you realize that, we do not really have interior defense presence. We don't have that 7-foot freak that you can interchange between, JaVale or Dwight, or, I mean, hell, if DeMarcus was healthy, he could have done that shit. But hey, best of luck in Houston, man. Hope he does well over there. I hate Houston with what they did over there. That whole fucking bukkake of a mess, but hope he does well. Gets paid. But Montrezl Harrell, I got to think maybe the inherent bias with the Clippers can have a lot to do with why the deal kind of irks me in that sense initially, but I'm hoping it works out well. This is still a young man, obviously went through tragedy with the passing of his grandmother throughout the 2020 season, which, I mean, this season just sucked for everybody. But losing a close family member like that, it really does your mental state a whole fucking rattle job over there. So, hell, maybe he bounces back this season. Maybe he gets on his feet and does well and becomes this beast role player that we need. And I think maybe the price of admission's a bit high right now, but hopefully it pays up. Hopefully it pays up and pays out. So, Montrezl Harrell, welcome to the Lakers. And Wesley Matthews on a 1-year, $3.6 million deal. I think this was a steal. Honestly, yes, you can say 34-year-old, maybe he's reached his fucking potential. He had his injury history. Yeah, sure. But still a guard who can get you points and do you dirty on the defense. And hell, what do you really need? Again, you got a team with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the GOAT, Alex Caruso. You don't really need much else. Just do your job. And I think Wesley Matthews is a perfect piece for that. So welcome on board, Wesley Matthews. And we get to welcome back our old boy, Marc Gasol. Yeah. Remember we picked him in the draft, then traded him for Powell? Yeah. So Mark's back. 2-year veteran minimum contract, and I love that deal. I absolutely love that deal. And yeah, you could say that this is a replacement for Dwight and how Dwight could have been bagged. And I heard my buddy say this, but simultaneously, man, if you're getting Marc Gasol on a veteran for 2 years on, his bad seasons, where I still think there's a lot of asterisk to that. There's a lot of reasons why he was bad. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he in an international tournament right after the NBA championship he won in 2019? But, whatever. I'm down with this move. Marc Gasol should be fantastic. And Man, honestly, just looking at other cats like Alfonso McKinney, a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers for JaVale McGee to free up cap space. Good move. 3 years left on his contract with 5.7 mil in total, with approximately 1.9 million of average you know annual value. I think we're set up to have a pretty damn good graded off season. And add Xavier Simpson, the undrafted free agent rookie, who can definitely thrive in the G League. I mean, from all accounts, I mean, all the things I skimmed so far, lots of positives on this prospect. And who the hell knows? He could be a guy like Costas or, Talon Horton Tucker, just coming on up through the G League and getting some minutes here and there throughout the nights. And maybe he's an impact player. I have no idea, but everyone welcome on board. And yes, when we talk about the Lakers, we have to talk about these re-signings. And I thought I would actually have time for talking about the other NBA teams, but it looks like we're going to have to make this a bit of a two-parter. But no fucking worries, children, because we are still going to talk and finish and wrap it on up with some lovely returns from 2020 champions. Yes, LeBron James is back. LeBron James. I call him LeBron James, and you get antsy about it, but I recognize that he is he's a transcendent fucking player still at his age with what he's doing. And coming back on a 2-year, $85 million extension contract, I'm still a bit hesitant on that number. Yes, he deserves the money. Absolutely, he does. But wow, that's a big chunk of the Lakers' salary. But you got to do what you got to do, and that just means LeBron is probably going to end his career as a Laker, or hell, who knows? Maybe after the end of the contract, he goes back to Cleveland and tries to, Michael Jordan that shit out, Washington Wizards style, play for part ownership. Even though Dan Gilbert isn't going to do any of that shit. So, best of luck, LeBron. Although you're probably going to go the routes of MJ and be a terrible owner. I could definitely see that happening in you. But, yeah, we got LeBron for a couple more years, and we definitely got AD for a couple more years, because what a way to wake up yesterday. Anthony Davis signing a 5-year, $190 million extension. I mean, I'm elated. I'm over the moon that this guy re-signed that long of a contract. I honestly thought this guy was going to sign a 1+1 deal where he would just constantly eat at the Lakers salary and keep on going. And for him to commit 5 years of his prime, I mean, 4 obviously with the +1, but to have AD commit a majority of his prime to the Lakers, it says a lot. It speaks a lot about his appreciation for this team, obviously the history, and man, maybe we get to 20 with AD. I have no idea. I hope so. I hope we're the first team to 20. It'd be just some arrogant shit. I'd be on hubris land all day. I wouldn't do shit for years if the Lakers got to 20 and just sit and bask in the epicness that is the Lakers. Like, oh yeah, we're on 20 rings, man. We could fit every ring on fingers and toes. So that's the dream. But the Lakers also, wanted the dream running, with the NBA championship, where they re-signed the third best player throughout the playoffs in KCP, 3 years, $40 million extension. I think this is a fantastic deal for what KCP has been able to offer. Good stuff. And to have other cats like Markieff Morris, Jared Dudley coming back on 1-year veteran mins, it says a lot about Rob Pelinka's finesse and what he's been able to do. And will he probably fuck up down the line? Yeah, I mean, he certainly has. While offloading contracts, I mean, the Ivica Zubac trade, I still say it's the most disgusting fucking trade ever to give the Clippers just a valuable asset and have Jerry West look like a fucking thug again. It's like, oh my God, why? But for this offseason, I got to tell you, the Lakers did a fantastic job. And bringing back the real GOAT, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, Kostas Antetokounmpo, Talon Horton-Tucker. I think this Lakers team is going to be very interesting down the line. And, maybe we'll see where we go with that, right? I don't know. Will the Lakers get shit through? You know what? Let me grab your nipples here a little bit.